Hi, and welcome back to Focal Point AFR Talk. A couple of quick items on this plane controversy. First of all, talking about Ukraine just for a second. You're aware that the people in Crimea are going to vote this Sunday whether they want to secede from Ukraine and join the Russian Federation, become a part of Russia. Well, there's a novel idea. People allowed to secede because they would rather be politically affiliated with somebody else. What a novel concept. Now, here's a wrinkle that not a lot of people, and people in Crimea haven't even, I think, factored this into account, and that is if they vote to secede from Ukraine and join Russia, if that's what Crimea does, they're going to lose their water supplies, their electricity supplies, and their natural gas supplies because they're going to get cut off at the knees. Here's a piece from Fox News. As Russia's stranglehold on Crimea tightens, the Ukrainian province to the north is warning it could make life on the peninsula miserable if the coveted region chooses sides with Moscow in Sunday's referendum. Crimea's electricity, fresh water, and natural gas all flows in from the province of Kherson, I don't know how you say it, where leaders warn they will shut everything off if the referendum they say is illegitimate goes forward. And this province of Kherson overwhelmingly passed a motion last week supporting the preservation of Ukraine's territorial integrity, which, remember, Russia signed an agreement in 1994 that they would respect and uphold and honor Ukraine's territorial sovereignty. That's how they convinced them to give up their nuclear weapons. Ukraine in 1994 was the third greatest nuclear power in the world. And they were talked into giving up all their nukes because Russia said, we're going to respect your territorial integrity. And we see exactly how much Vladimir Putin's word means at this point. Now, Crimea is 60% ethnic Russian, so the chances are they're going to vote to secede. But listen to this. Crimea's fresh water flows from the Kharkov Reservoir in Kherson via the 250-mile North Crimean aqueduct. The peninsula's vast orchards and vineyards rely on mainland water supply for their livelihood, as do the people in Crimea cities of Simferopol, Sevastopol, and so forth. So Kherson is going to say, look, this water is for people in Ukraine. You're not in Ukraine anymore, so we're going to expect you to find your own water supplies. Don't look to us any longer for that because you're no longer a part of Ukraine. Just as important to Crimea is the power it gets from the Kharkov and Zaporizhia hydroelectric power stations in Kherson, which provide the peninsula with 75-80% of its electricity needs. So Kherson is going to say to Crimea, okay, if you're part of Russia, then you need to look to Russia for your electricity. You're not a part of Ukraine anymore. There goes 75 to 80% of your electricity. Finally, Crimea gets 35% of its natural gas delivered through pipelines that extend from the mainland via these two regions, one of them being Kherson. So they're going to say, look, you don't belong to Ukraine anymore. You're going to have to find 35 to 40% of your natural gas somewhere else. So they got to take that into consideration. And one other thing, then I'll grab a phone call and get to some sound bites. This is a thing. I don't know if you heard about this, but this adds a whole new wrinkle to this missing plane thing. The Wall Street Journal has revealed that aviation experts and national security officials now believe that the plane flew for a total of 4 to 5 hours, after it went off the radar, based on data automatically downloaded from the Boeing 777 and sent back to the ground as part of a routine monitoring program. Now, what this article is talking about is that the engines on this Boeing 777 were made by Rolls-Royce. Now, the Rolls-Royce engines that are on this plane automatically transmit data to Rolls-Royce. So Rolls-Royce made the engines. They've installed some kind of technology on these engines to automatically transmit data about how these engines are functioning back to Rolls-Royce on the ground. Now, so Rolls-Royce says, look, we were getting data transmissions from these engines 4 to 5 hours after Everybody says this thing went off radar and landed in the sea. So there's no possible way that the plane went down and dished in the sea as early as everybody said. I mean, according to Rolls-Royce, it flew for another 4 to 5 hours. And we've got the data to prove that. Now, Malaysia's saying this morning, look, nothing to that. We can assure you, no, it didn't fly for another 4 to 5 hours. But this opens up some interesting possibilities. And again, this is not conspiracy theory stuff. This is based on hard data. Rolls-Royce. We were getting data transmissions for 4 hours after everybody said the plane had disappeared. Well, it hadn't. Those engines were still operating. That plane was still flying. Now, the possibility here is that the plane was hijacked. Now, both the pilots, by the way, I don't know if you knew this. I didn't know this until this morning doing show prep. Both of the pilots are Muslims. They have Muslim names. Now, it makes sense being from Malaysia, but the pilots are Muslims. The two guys that got on board the plane using fake passports were both Iranians. So you've got at least 4 guys on that plane. Now, most of the passengers were Chinese. I don't know whether they were Muslim or not. You do have some Muslims, the Uyghurs in kind of Western China. No idea what the religious affiliation of most of the Chinese passengers were, but you got at least 4 that you know are Muslims that are on that plane. 2 of them, pilot and co-pilot, would be in a position to hijack that thing, and they could turn off the transponder. You know, pilots will tell you that there's no reason for a pilot ever to turn off the transponder. There's no reason. If a pilot turns off a transponder, there's something sinister at work there because they want to be visible to civilian radar. That's what keeps them from running into another plane in the middle of the air. That's how an airport can guide them safely to their destination if they run into some kind of problem. So there's no way in the world a pilot that wants to land the plane safely with his passengers and his crew is going to turn off the transponder. So these pilots had to do it. We don't know why, but they would not know about this automatic data transmission from the engines. They wouldn't know about that and probably have no idea how to turn it off. So you think about how far the plane could have flown in 4 hours. It could have potentially gotten to Pakistan. Now, I want you to think about this just for a second. So the possibility is that this plane flew 4 hours somewhere and it landed. It landed somewhere. That's why they can't find it anywhere in the sea. Now, again, all this could be wrong. Don't misunderstand me. I'm not stating this as a fact. I'm saying this is I would think, a very realistic and plausible possibility here that because of what Rolls-Royce is telling us. This is coming from hard data on the ground. Plane could have flown somewhere for 4 hours, lands somewhere, and now you've got a plane. You've got a big plane, and it's invisible to civilian radar because you've turned off the transponder. It's obviously a big plane. It had 239 people on board, 227 passengers, 12 crew, and all that kind of stuff. And remember how they got the weapons of mass destruction out of Iraq. Remember, I read you that story about an Iraqi Air Force general saying the way we got WMDs out of Iraq is we took 3 passenger planes and we took all the seats, all the passenger seats out of these passenger planes, and we put all the weapons of mass destruction in the passenger compartments of those passenger planes, and we flew them to Syria. That's how we got the WMDs out of Iraq. Well, now again, you've got this situation where it's possible. I'm not saying this is what happened. I'm just saying this is a plausible possibility that you've got a plane somewhere that's on the ground, and there's nothing, if these people have sinister intentions, there would be nothing to stop them from removing all of the passenger seats, loading this thing up with explosives and flying it into a building somewhere. You got experienced pilots, obviously, can fly this thing. You got the transponder off, so people aren't going to see it till it's too late. So anyway, we'll have to see what happens, but interesting possibilities there. Well, let's go to the phones. Let's grab a call from Jake in Hope Mill, North Carolina. Jake, welcome. What's on your mind? Jake, let me have you turn your radio down so we don't get any feedback and interference.
Yeah, I got you. You covered a lot this afternoon, and I'm very proud of you. I just you had brought up an issue about the the shekel and the workers coming and, I don't mean to be off pace, but you don't need to apologize for that. That is the basis of our beliefs, and it's right. And I just wanted to reinforce the scriptures and the power they have in our lives. Yeah.
So you're specifically talking about the parable of the vineyards, where the landowner makes an agreement in terms of wages and compensation with each individual employer, and then he kept his word to them, and that's what was fair and just and equitable, even if they got paid at different rates.
That's right, and you had apologized because you said it was way off base of what you were really talking about, but it's really not.
Okay.
It's at the core of what we call ourselves as Christians and patriots, and it's who we are as America.
All right. Well, listen, I appreciate that, Jake. Thank you for that. Yeah, and what I meant by that is I was kind of off the topic I started talking about, but Jake is saying, look, this is what we're about. We're about bringing a Judeo-Christian worldview to every issue where there is a connection. All right, Jake, I appreciate that. Thank you very much for that. Let's grab one more call for the break. Let's go to JR in Tremont, Michigan. JR, Tremont, Michigan. Welcome. What's on your mind?
Good afternoon, Brian. First-time caller. Love your show.
Thank you very much, and thank you for calling.
My comment is I'm a little I'm appalled that we haven't had a more stronger reaction from your bit about the Minneapolis incident with the female workers, and I just think as Christians and as true Americans that flies in the face of what this country was founded on. Mm-hmm. Now hang up and listen to you respond.
All right, JR, I appreciate that. What JR is talking about, first hour, we talked about the fact that the Sharia-compliant Minneapolis city government basically pressured every woman that works for the city to wear a hijab on February 28th. And I was talking about the fact that they were going to be fair, if they were going to be equitable, they would have cross day, and everybody would be pressured, systematically convinced was their word, to wear a cross on that day. Well, we wouldn't do that because we do not believe in coercion. We don't believe in that kind of coercion. We believe that's a matter of conscience and individual choice, so we're not going to do that. But there was no hesitation from the Muslim community and no hesitation from Minneapolis City Hall in allowing that kind of religious coercion to take place. And you know what's happened at the Air Force Academy? One cadet wrote a Bible verse on the whiteboard outside his room, been disciplined for it, and the result was a whole bunch of other cadets wrote Bible verses on their whiteboards outside their rooms, kind of an I am Spartacus moment. Focal Point, AFR Talk.